20 years ago almost, maybe more. I was asked to write a chapter for a book, and it was the first time I ever got asked to do something like that. And so I didn't know what to write about. They said I could pick anything. And I just won the world's best purse strainer contest for the second time. So I felt a lot of pressure. And in that stage of life, I didn't really believe I was worthy of my position in a lot of ways. And so looking back, I know that, but at the time I wasn't aware of this. So I had these feelings of like, oh, I gotta be perfect. And so I turned on the TV. What people do when they get stressed? Turn on ESPN2. That's what I did. And so, I'm just so guided in this moment because on television, I never saw it in my life before, was sumo wrestling. And I heard my Tony Robbins tapes from when I was 13 years old talk to me about modeling, finding out what successful people do, and then gleaning those examples, those steps, those lessons, those principles from, and applying them. They say, smart people learn from their own experiences. Geniuses learn from the experiences of other successful people. And so I decided I am going to learn all about sumo wrestlers because what they do is they're very successful at the opposite thing I help people with. So most people want to lose body fat. Their goal is to put on as much as possible. And so I figured if I could figure out what they do, the principles they live by, their lifestyle, I could just reverse engineer it and then I would know what works. And I thought it was fun. And so I did my recon. I got in there, I started talking to people, I was doing all these phone calls. And what I found is this. In Japan, a sumo wrestler is like a rock star. They are admired, respect. They're like legendary in a lot of ways. They're on billboards, all this stuff. And so to become that is like becoming a professional athlete in the United States. And so what happens is as a child, you get sent off to a sumo school. It's a compound where everyone's there living this lifestyle to master sumo. And this is their daily schedule. They wake up at 6 a.m. and they don't eat breakfast. They train for 6 hours. They do some lifting, they do a bunch of drills, they practice sumo. And then when they're done, what do they eat? Cake? No. They eat a fish stew. So they have rice, a bunch of vegetables, and fish. Then they take a nap. And then when they wake up, they have a giant dinner. It's all the things they ate at lunch, but much more. And sake. So they add alcohol to it. Then they go back to sleep. And they wake up and they repeat that again and again and again. You're like, but you're saying like, they're only eating twice a day. In fact, they're intermittent fasting, right? Doesn't intermittent fasting burn fat? Well, that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. What are the principles? And I'm not saying intermittent fasting is bad, but you have to know why it works when it works and what makes it ineffective. So we're going to go to a study that was done. Now, when you look at research studies, there are some things, like sometimes you have a study with only 4 people in it. It's not a great study. Now, this study had a lot of people in it, and it wasn't short. So a lot of times studies can be 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and it gives you some information, but it's not a great study. In this case, it was a year-long study. And what they did, they wanted to test the intermittent fasting eating window. So if you're not familiar with intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, different terminologies, it's when you say, I'm going to eat in this time frame every day. I'm going to eat from 12 to 8 each day. I won't eat before and I won't eat after. And it sets up guardrails for you. And so if you're a person that isn't real aware of what they're eating and when they're eating, they're just reacting, this is actually a good strategy, a promising strategy to eliminate that unconscious eating, especially earlier in the day or later in the day. And so I remember a long time ago, Oprah Winfrey had the very popular show on, and what happened was is she lost a bunch of weight, but then she would gain it back. But I remember one time when she lost weight, she brought a wagon out, and it was like the amount of fat she lost, which was great. And what happened was she just made a plan. She apparently had a problem with eating late at night. She would not eat enough because she's so busy during the day, and when the sun goes down, your body's telling you, it's taking inventory, and it's like, hey, you didn't take in enough today. And then your neurotransmitter enzyme teams up and it creates a craving, and it's very hard to stop. And so there's nothing wrong with eating later at night. But the thing is, most people, when they eat at night, they're eating out of reaction, and they're famished. So what happens is they overeat and they don't make good food choices, right? And so if you're eating, baked salmon with lemon and steamed broccoli and a sweet potato, you can eat that anytime. But what I want you to understand is, why do sumo wrestlers do intermittent fasting and become remarkably overweight? But that's their goal. Why is that? Is it because they eat 2 meals a day, or because they eat in an 8-hour window? What is it? Well, that's what you're going to learn here. So in this study, what they found was they looked at the amount of food they ate. So everyone in this study had 2,000 calories. This is a very important aspect of research. So if you eat in one group, let me tell you the whole thing. One group was the continuous eating group. So they ate from the time they woke up to the time they go to sleep. They could eat anytime, but they had to keep it to about 2,000 calories. The other group ate in a 6-hour window, and I believe it was 12 to 6, if I recall properly. And they went through the study and they measured the results. What were the changes in fat loss? Well, they were identical. They were similar, but not just similar, but almost identical. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that timing isn't as important, but the amount of food, the amount of calories, the amount of energy you put in your body is the primary factor when it comes to changing your body composition, building fat and burning fat and building muscle. Very important. So the amount of food is the single most important principle when it comes to fat loss. Now, a lot of people know that, yet very few people keep an eye on it. They're not aware of how much they actually ingest. And they're often eating in reaction. Maybe a lot of times humans eat when they get stressed. They soothe their emotions. They change their emotional state by eating and getting that dopamine response, right? But that can also cause us to get out of shape and become very unhealthy. And so we got to create a level of awareness, knowing that the number one principle is the amount of calories, the amount of food you take in, and of course, how much you burn off. You want to have a way of measuring that. You can measure and weigh your food for a period of time until you hit your goal, or you could use your hand portioning tool that you've learned from me. And I didn't invent that, by the way, someone else invented that, but using your hand to measure your portion sizes. What you need is consistency. And so if there were only 3 principles when it comes to nutrition, these are them. If you want to be healthy, lean, strong, energized, you need to know how much of these you are taking in. The number one principle is hydration. And a really great rule to have is get your fluids right. If someone's drinking alcohol, well, that's not going to work. You got to minimize that or eliminate it. If you want to optimize your life, I would just get rid of it, because nothing good really comes from it, in my opinion, but it's your choice. But get rid of the fluids, get rid of the drinks, the beverages that are full of calories, unless it's a protein shake or a green drink, because there's hardly any calories in that, right? So you want to drink mostly water, but unsweetened coffee and tea are also great choices. And so, or lemon water, you can do those things, but get enough fluids. And a really simple principle that works for almost everybody is take your body weight in pounds and divide it in half. And that's how many ounces per day you need to ingest. Now, if you're using a sauna or you're out in the heat and you're sweating a lot, take your body weight times 0.7, and that would be a better amount of ounces per day. So it's body weight times 0.5, then your body weight times 0.7, and that will give you the minimum amount and the optimal amount. Got it? And you want to eliminate the things you're drinking. Like if you're having, you go to Starbucks and you're getting like a drink, you can still drink it, but look at the nutrition facts and decide if it's worth it to you. Because a lot of times you're really close to making the progress you want. But if you're just eating a little too much food or eating too little food, that can be the determining factor. Now, the second most important thing is the calories, the amount of food. So get your hydration right. Number two, let's measure how much food. Be consistent with your fuel intake. If you want to measure and weight, you can ask me how to do that. I'm happy to do that. But I can do another audio for you guys, whatever you need. But just know, today I want you to just know that these three principles are the essential nutrition principles everyone must apply if you want to be lean, strong, energized, and feel great. So it's hydration, and two, calories, or the amount of food you take in on a daily basis. And the third thing is you can, when most people lose weight, you're in a typical lower calorie diet, and they lose 10 pounds, usually 5 to 6 pounds of that comes from lean body mass. And that is not good. Protecting muscle is of utmost importance. In terms of longevity and living a long life where you don't have to have someone changing your diaper for you, you gotta keep your muscle, you gotta keep your strength. It's more important than the amount of fat on your body. So you don't want to be frail because you lost muscle. That's what happened to my mom, and it is the worst thing ever because there's nothing I could do. There's a tipping point. Like there's a point where if you can't move anymore, you can't really train. Now, I just want to emphasize, because it really means a lot to me, and it's one of the reasons why I do all this, is you want to protect muscle. And I know everyone wants to lose weight. Get muscle. Muscle is compact, it looks cool, but it feels awesome because muscle is the physical location in the body where stored fat is converted to fuel. It is your fat burning machinery. So if you do a diet that deprives your body and you don't get enough protein and don't do resistance training, you're gonna strip away that lean body mass. You're gonna lose some fat burning furnaces. But the other thing is your energy is not gonna be the same. It's gonna be much lower because muscle is also where we make ATP, energy. So the more muscle you have, the stronger you live, the more energy you have, and the more functional. Everything is easier when you have more muscle. You don't have to struggle so much. And so keep this in mind. So how much protein do you need? So there's a range, but your body weight in pounds times 0.8. So a 200-pound person would have 160 grams of protein per day. Now, when a lot of people do this calculation, like, oh my God, that's a lot. No, it's not. It's the optimal amount. There is an insane amount of research on this. And if you want to model someone, model a natural bodybuilder. I'm not talking about the guys and the girls that take drugs. I'm talking about the ones that do it naturally. They use food, supplementation, sleep, hydration, and training. Those are the things that move the needle. And so you want to get this amount of protein. Ideally, you split it up in equal portions. So for our 160 gram per day person, let's say they have 4 meals a day. What would be ideal would be 40 grams 4 times a day. Now, it's more important just to get it in. So if you have one meal where you have a whole bunch of protein, one with a little less, just make sure you get protein every time you eat. Got it? So those are the 3 principles. You may be asking, what is the best amount of calories too? How much should I eat? What I would do is this. I would track your food for 7 days. Use an app like MyFitnessPal or MacroFactor and measure and weigh your food. Learn that skill because it's an essential skill. And if you ever want to transform, like all the before and after pictures we have, you need to track those things. Because when I know those things and you know those things, I can guide you and coach you with precision. but it's possible. Now, you're not going to do that forever. Then you can live by using the hand portioning. So now you by measuring for a period of time, you know what your plate looks like. You know how much chicken breast it is. You know what the potatoes look like. You know the broccoli. You know all this stuff. But you have to have the experience of going to nutrition school, the nutrition school of life. Not going to actually class, but actually measuring, weighing, getting your hands dirty. It is so important. Now, I'm going to leave you with the 3 prerequisites that everyone needs to achieve anything, especially physical enhancement. If you want to burn fat, build muscle, live longer, get stronger, increase your performance at a sport or just because it's fun to do, you got to have these 3 things. If you want to build your business, have a better relationship, all those things. You want to start a foundation, you need these 3 things. The first one, and very few people ever talk about it, it's self-awareness. You don't know what you don't know. And we all know someone who's like that, where they're oblivious to what the effect they're having on the environment around them. And I'm sure I've done that many times myself, but I wouldn't know because I wasn't aware at the time. So I'm not pointing a finger at everyone. I'm pointing a finger at all of us, including myself. So self-awareness. And so the research on this is referred to as mindfulness. The great, legendary Dr. Ellen Langer wrote the book and coined the term mindfulness. And I've done a lot of I had a lot of talks about her research. I'll leave it at that. But what she says, mindfulness means this: to notice changes, to notice patterns, to be aware of what's around you. That's simple. But that allows you to detect patterns. And patterns allows us to connect the dots. It's how we get ideas. It's how we create things. It's how we mitigate false steps. But self-awareness, that's the key. Now, the second thing is self-honesty. Now, you can be aware, but if we're in fear-based states, we're in the ego exaggerates, it lies, and it lies to make the ego look good. And so what do I mean by that? Well, I believe the research on this was done by Dan Ariely, and Predictably Irrational is the book it was published in, I believe. I could be wrong, but if you want to check that out. And so what we basically find is our brains lie. And so they make us look good. It will mitigate or minimize our responsibility, and it will make external things be at fault. And we've all been there, but what I've learned over the years is it's not all the time. If you're in love-based emotional states like gratitude, determination, love, passion, joy, courage, you tend to do the right thing. You tend to see things as they really are, and you don't beat yourself up about it. But when we're in fear, when we're in anger, when we're in sadness, depression, pity, shame, we tend to blow things out of proportion. And if you're a human and you're listening to this, you know that's true. And so we have to be aware of that. That's just the pattern humans have. And you want to start to be aware of your patterns. And then when you say, oh, this is what it was, then you ask yourself, was that really true? Is that what happened? If someone else is watching this and experience it, what would they say? If my mom was doing it, what would she say? If my best friend was here, what would they say happened? And you can change hats, so to speak. You can change perspectives. Make sense? So self-awareness, self-honesty, and the last one, and this is what the world needs more now than ever. It is personal responsibility. Everything that happens in your life is up to you. You were given it. You were blessed with the opportunity, because problems and mistakes are how we learn. They're opportunities to learn unless we decide otherwise. We choose what we do and what we don't. If we want to point a finger, blame, criticize, make up a story to make ourselves feel better, that's eventually going to come back and get us. We are blessed with gifts that we call problems, challenges, obstacles. And if there weren't any problems or challenges or obstacles or resistance in life, would you grow? Or are they put in front of us because we need to notice something. It's time for us to go to the next level. And the only way through the next level is by taking on a challenge and joyfully crushing it. And the only thing you can do is crush it or learn and go again. That's life. But what we believe about problems is really important. And so I'll leave that for another time. But these are the three prerequisites of achieving anything: self-awareness, self-honesty, and taking 100% personal responsibility that for everything in your life. It may not always be your fault, but it is your responsibility. And you have what it takes to overcome it. You, my friend, are greater than any challenge that stands before you. Till next time.
You tap into the real you, but you have to retrain yourself. The way you retrain yourself is you wake your ass up in the morning and you say, I am here for a reason and a purpose. And it's bigger than my moods. It's bigger than the difficulties of the day. I am here to live like a lion, not the fear of a lamb.